What's up? Welcome to the episode of the Digital and Social Media Sports Podcast. I am your host, Neil Horowitz. Hit me up on Twitter, NJH287. Follow me on LinkedIn as well, where I post more content. The website, as always, dsmsports.net. And of course, follow the podcast on whichever podcast platform is your favorite these days. What an awesome show for you guys today. I was so psyched to be able to book this guest. He's someone that I have followed, read, listened to, watched for many years. My guest on the podcast today is Dan Wetzel. He is a national columnist for Yahoo Sports. Perfect time for this podcast as college football is about to kick off. Dan is in and around college athletics, but also has just done so much throughout his career, investigating and reporting on major stories in sports and beyond. He's authored books. He's worked on documentaries. Dan has a wealth of knowledge. He has been there since the start for Yahoo Sports and offers so much good insight on how they built the brand, how they built the voice, what it's like navigating the increasingly complex world for sports media and beyond these days. Just tremendous stuff. So here he is. Listen up. Here's Dan Wetzel of Yahoo Sports. I am back with today's guest, and I'm so psyched to be talking to him. He is in my ears multiple hours every week, and I enjoy every minute of it. My guest on the podcast today is Dan Wetzel. He is a national columnist for Yahoo Sports and also host of the College Football Inquirer for Yahoo Sports. And welcome to the podcast today, Dan.
Well, thanks for listening to our pod, the College Football Inquirer. So at least I can do.
Really psyched to be chatting with you, and you guys really have a great just hold on the social media or the college football community across not just social media, but podcasting, and have a great feel for the pulse of what drives this crazy sport, these crazy fans. But before we get in the meat of our discussion, because you've been in the journalism game a long time, and we can learn a lot from you. Tell us about your career path, your stops along the way, what you're doing today, and any tips for folks that kind of want to try to do what you do.
Well, I'm mainly a columnist and investigative reporter at Yahoo. That's, the podcast is just a separate thing we do. I cover a lot of college football. So not really a full-time podcaster,
right?
Although people do like it. Yeah, I've been at Yahoo 20 years or so. I was the first sports writer hired, and we kind of created Yahoo Sports. We did have a fantasy game going.
Wow.
But before that, there was no journalism or anything like that. And we kind of built a reporting staff and a brand and lots of stuff we were doing that didn't necessarily have all the names that it has now.
Mm-hmm.
Marketing it, building up its reputation, having a voice, how to differentiate ourselves from other outlets, how to gain credibility, all the different things we had to do. So it's been a fun ride building up Yahoo Sports. We've been bigger, we've been smaller, we've been bigger. You never know what's going on, but we certainly it's been cool. It was like a startup with a lot of backing. Because we had Yahoo behind it, but it was very much a startup at the beginning. There wasn't very small staff and very big ambitions.
And it's interesting to think that Yahoo was once maybe the front page of the internet for many users, and myself included, and yet the Yahoo Sports brand is arguably stronger today than even the Yahoo brand itself. I mean, there's some verticals I'm sure that is strong. We don't need to necessarily go into that. Just interesting how Yahoo Sports for all these years continues to really remain up there. So I guess tell me a little bit, have you always been a national columnist, and kind of how did you find that niche and what areas you wanted to cover as just a journalist in general, Yahoo included, but also beyond Yahoo?
Well, I did work as a news reporter, courts and cops. I got into covering college basketball after doing news and police reporting in Indianapolis and Chicago, and I've done a bunch of different things. Trying to be a casino dealer, does different stuff as my career was going along. I eventually started working at CBS Sports Line, it was called at the time. It's basically CBS Sports, and I was doing college basketball for them, and then moved from that to all sports at Yahoo. So I've pretty much always been kind of more national focused than sports. Just went from basketball to all sports.
I kind of want to hear then about how take on that role, Yahoo. You kind of allude to this a little bit in your previous response around how you do differentiate. And I mean, first, I guess, like, what was it like to sort of define the brand of Yahoo, like the Yahoo Sports, I guess, for that case? This is where we live. These are the types of readers that we want to have. This is the sort of the tone. Was tone and approach and voice even a part of the conversation early on? Did that become more important later on? Like, how did you guys kind of find yourselves within the greater sports media ecosystem, and how intentional was the differentiation?
We needed to be credible and professional.
Mm-hmm.
We were a search engine, so people didn't look at us as a media organization.
Mm-hmm.
And when you talk to like teams or leagues or people, it was very like, well, what is that? That's a search engine. They have a sports, like, what are you guys doing? So early on, we needed to be very credible, very professional, and build that way. And we kind of leaned a lot on our ability to reach enormous audiences. As you said, there was a long stretch where Yahoo was basically the front page for people. Yahoo.com, the literal www.yahoo.com, was the most visited page of the internet for many, many years. So you could leverage that people knew you were big, or people would do that, but how do you get to that? So first step was to be very credible, hire credible people, um, do a professional job. And then it was, how do you build a brand off of that? We did a lot of, we were aggressive in voice, aggressive in investigations,
Mm-hmm.
breaking news, made us do things to make yourself impossible to ignore, if not respect, and go that route. So it was a lot of like, okay, they need, not only are they serious, we need to take them seriously. And so that was really our focus for a long time in the way we covered sports and approached sports.
Yeah. No, I mean, even I'm just thinking in the back of my head too of like all the major, reports and stories that Yahoo has broken over the years that maybe others were not either persistent enough to get after, or didn't even attempt to get after. And I guess too, like, when it comes to what you choose to cover, I mean, some of this is proactive, like you are investigating a lead. And sometimes it's just what everyone else is talking about. Like, everyone had a Johnny Manziel opinion or a Tim Tebow opinion or whatever is writing about the Yankees and the Red Sox. How much did like the traffic, clicks, time spent, whatever those metrics came to be, as we got more and more sophisticated, as being an online ecosystem, being an online publication? How much did you pay attention to that? How much did your bosses want you to pay attention to that? And how much was it like, hey, we know this is the most important story, even if it's not going to get the most clicks?
There's a balance, but we were very data driven, using the information we had, the metrics that we had to understand different things.
Mm-hmm.
We did not want to be stuck to the past. So we covered what the public wanted. You don't necessarily need to reinvent. You're going to have a hard time getting the public to change their opinion on what they want to read.
Mm-hmm.
So you serve those readers by going where they want. There was a lot of like, like long feature writing was really never really going to work much except in the extremely, extremely good cases. So you eliminate that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though that's what most journalists want to do because it's more rewarding and more kind of serious. Just a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff of using the metrics to understand what we want. We're going to cover what the public wants, not what traditionally has been covered or how it's been covered or anything like that, or how the leagues want us to cover things. We're just going to go do what works. And so that's what we had a, tremendous staff of those types of people that were very like-minded, and we just would go do whatever the hell we wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to cover the Olympics the way we want to cover the Olympics. We're going to cover the NBA the way, and there would be a lot of friction often on that, but audience is the audience. So there's a way to do that without being um, losing quality or losing perspective. It doesn't just have to be clickbait. It can be informed. So it's knowing that um, you'd say like, or you mentioned like Johnny Manziel. You can do a smart, aggressive coverage of Johnny Manziel and a lot of it without just being like clickbait Johnny Manziel. Anybody can do that stuff. So
Mhm.
we always would talk about like like the analytics in baseball, and my favorite one of the stats is VORP, value over replacement player.
Mhm.
And so if you're not delivering value, if every writer isn't delivering value over replacement player, what are you doing that the other people aren't? Then you're failing, because we can get anybody, you can get the same stuff everywhere. So what do you do? What are you contributing that's above that? And that had to be the mindset that we would go into. So we were very journalistic, but with a different perspective on what the journalism should be. Not what we think should be covered or this, but like what needed to be covered. And then how are we doing it with a differentiation?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. Something that we hit on a lot in this podcast is like information right now is becoming more commoditized. When there's a Woj bomb, or when Shams drops something, or when Pete Thamel reports something, whatever it might be, or Ross
Yeah.
Dellinger.
All those guys worked for us. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, now it's open to everybody on the internet can write about it and offer their own spin on it. And sometimes you might want to go and hear the opinionists, or the people that you listen to their podcast, you watch their YouTube channel. And it's how do you make sure that they want to come to you to get either that more informed take, or maybe that take that they like because they relate to you and they like your personality. So I guess we can take that any direction, but how did you start to understand that you are not just sort of a not faceless is the wrong term, but there was an opportunity to develop a relationship with your readers as they want to read Dan Wetzel. They have a kind of parasocial relationship. We talked about this even offline with you, and want to and understand that you can build that relationship, especially as social media kind of came about and you started your own Twitter feed and you started to have two-way conversations. How did you kind of find that come to develop and start to think of yourself as almost a quasi personal brand?
I think I do think there was that there when people would just read, they would know who you were because they would read the page every day. It's just sort of the way it's interacted. So if you're you know ideally you have a relationship with readers, because a conversation, like it's a long conversation. We were talking about podcasting, but it's like, if you're reading me every day for years, you kind of know how I think. And then
Mhm.
if you disagree with one of the columns, you don't sit there and go, "Oh, that guy's a moron. I'll never listen to him again." It's like when you're talking to one of your friends and you disagree with one of their things. You're like, okay, we'll move on to the next thing, right?
Mhm.
So you build up the trust of the audience, and you build up a trust in whatever thought I have that you may like, may not like. It's rooted on um, informed opinion, reporting. You're not just throwing crap out there. Those guys come and go, and they go pretty quick, and then they don't know why they can't come back. So if you're going to have a long career, you've got to sort of do stuff. And throughout time, there's constantly these mini trends where everyone will get all excited about this or that, and you get a lot of executives or a lot of people in media going, "This is the next big thing." It doesn't last, and then that whole thing falls apart. So you kind of always have to be true to yourself on it. But whether it's just people reading the column, or hearing you on talk radio shows, or listening to your podcast, or getting to know you some through social media, it's the more of a relationship you have with them, I think your trust level is better. And so I think people have an understanding, and that's just with each individual, but an entire site. What's the ethos of the site?
Yeah, no, it's really interesting that especially that closing statement there, because I mean, in my observations, looking at Yahoo over the years, and even having, I mentioned I had a previous guest with you from Yahoo Sports some years ago on this podcast, and I really liked sort of the attitude, the voice, and it's relatively consistent even with you and your colleagues at Yahoo, and there is that sort of consistent voice across the board, I guess. So I kind of want to hear like a little bit of how you came to find your voice, where it is informed, it can be irreverent, it can be fun, it can be funny, it can be serious. It's very thoughtful and articulate. So how have you kind of honed your voice over the years? And especially I want to hear like how you found the balance of understanding that this is at the end of the day, this is sports. It's not the most important thing in the world, even though it can feel like it sometimes. And there's a lot of just zaniness and wackiness, especially in the college space. How have you kind of found that ability to balance the seriousness side of it, but also just the fun and jocularity of it as well?
Yeah, I just think with sports, it's all of those things. So you can, I cover really serious subjects through the years.
Yeah.
I mean, murder trials, Jerry Sandusky, Larry Nasser, things like that. I mean, a lot of trials, a lot of heavy issues with the NCAA, the Olympic committees, the FIFA, things like that,
Yeah.
life and death stuff. But you can also be like, this is just funny. I don't take the small stuff seriously. I take the big stuff seriously.
Mhm.
And so, um, at the end of the day, the games are about the entertainment, the business. I just treat it like a business. I feel always felt more like a business reporter than a sports reporter. The games are the easiest thing to cover and the least important. Um, they have a huge scoreboard that tells you what the final score is. It's all the other stories where you don't have a final score. So how do you do all that? And I think you just have different things. You can say the NFL, they have this, let's say, some controversy, and they're just absolutely on the wrong on this controversy. You can hammer the NFL all you want on that, and then you can still go to a game on Sunday or go to the Super Bowl and be like, Patrick Mahomes is awesome. Like you could, as an NFL fan, you could be like, I don't like the NFL does this, 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 and this, but at the end of the day, I want to watch the football game because I like football.
Yeah.
And Tom Brady leading that comeback is awesome. So what can I provide on that? And so you can be a little bit of everything. I've told this story in our podcast, but I remember growing up. Um, I think like the sports writers can take certain aspects of it too seriously, but then they'll ignore bigger things because they're more complicated to cover. But
Mhm.
I used to always say like there'd be I'm a big hockey fan, a big Boston Bruins fan, and always have been. And there'd be like a bench clearing brawl in the Boston Bruins game or something like that. And
Mhm.
we'd be watching the game. And then the next morning you get up and the newspaper would say, game marred by brawl. And there'd be this, oh, this is terrible. And you'd be in like seventh grade and you'd get to school so excited to talk about what the brawl to all your friends. Like we thought it was awesome. Like there was a bench clearing brawl. You see that one guy got this. Like we'd be fired up. Like this was entertaining. And I'd always be like, is the game marred by it or was everyone excited about it? Right. And I guess it can be both, but you don't lose the aspect of like, oh, everything's got to be done a certain way. Everything's got to be a certain thing. It's like, no, I think fans enjoy the characters and the chaos. And certainly in college athletics, the controversies, the scandals, the personalities are a bigger part of it than just the games. Because if you want to watch really good football, you want to watch the best football, you don't watch college football. The best actual football being played is at the NFL. You want
Right.
to watch the best basketball, you watch the NBA. The players are better, the coaching's better, the rules are better. It just is. You're watching because of a passion and all the other mayhem and the environments and all the other stuff, as well as good basketball or good football. So to ignore that or to um, not want what sometimes is interesting to me would always be a little bit. So I guess I don't know if that really explains it, but I've just always kind of took it as like, yeah, I can go from something as unbelievably serious and horrible as writing about Larry Nasser,
Yeah.
and then 2 days, the next day go over to something that's funny because that's sports. It's very varied. That's life. You can do both and believe both and think both.
Yeah. No, I mean, it forced you to kind of use both sides of your brain sometimes too, and understand that Larry Nasser's a very serious story, and there's nothing funny about that at all. And whereas other stuff, there is some fun and comedy too. And I remember even myself, like working for the my first job in sports was working for the Anaheim Ducks, and one of our first seasons, George Peros and Kevin Westgarth got in a fight in one of my first games I was covering, and the next day they're out to dinner because they're like former Ivy League buddies, and that just goes to show that like there's a line between that. Even the guys within themselves are brawling on the ice, but they understand that just it's part of the game and it's part of the entertainment aspect of it as well to some degree and the intensity.
Right.
Uh, but I also kind of hear then a little bit about like who you have in mind when you are, whether it's writing stories, understanding your voice, understanding which stories you want to tell. You mentioned sort of treating it like a business, and there's also the X and O. So there's so many different angles now available. Anyone can find the exact version of the story they want to read or the exact type of coverage and angle they want to find. Or do you have a certain fan in mind or a certain persona in mind when you're understanding like this is the way I'm going to tell the story, this is the way I'm going to approach realignment, this is the way I'm going to approach NIL or whatever. Does that dictate kind of how you take a look at these stories and the angles you pursue based on what you think the fans want out of you?
Not really. Um, I guess on a on like a complicated issue like NIL or whatever, it's just trying to be reasonable, understanding it and carving out like, okay, this is what I think, not just repeating. Uh, NIL, the easiest thing to do with NIL and probably the most profitable would be to cry that the sky is falling. That's what everyone wanted.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be the worst. All the recruits are going to go to Alabama. Everything, and I knew that wasn't the case. If you understand economics and stuff, um, but coaches are the worst sources because they know almost nothing other than what they're coaching. They really don't. They whine and complain nonstop. So when they'd be like, well, this coach says it's the worst thing. Well, it might be bad for him, but he's not thinking past his life for 5 minutes.
Right.
We were really quick on no, NIL is going to spread out the talent. I mean, these coaches are telling you that all the laws of economics no longer exist in this one entity
Mm-hmm.
because their feelings are hurt. So you try to explain it as best you can on something like that. If it's a a trial, you're trying to convey information and describe the situation. It could be the severity. If it's a game, you're trying to show people things they can't see on television. Each thing has a different, but there's not one person that I'm trying to speak to. It's more like, there's certain things where like there's certain like concepts. So let's say you cover something and you're driving home and my wife calls or a friend calls and says, hey, what'd you do today? I was at this game. I was at this trial. I worked on this story. And you go, and they go, oh, what happened? And the first thing you tell them is what you need to describe. So you don't sit there and say, wow, man, after the game, the quarterback was bawling his eyes out. He was all distraught and all this stuff. And then your story doesn't really mention that or doesn't focus on that. Right. So you try to just like, what's interesting? You're there to provide insight, mainly like you want to write about people that are on TV when they're not on TV. And so you try, what can I provide? What's the VORP? And so there's a little bit of that, but those are all different types of stories. Yeah, obviously it's not scenes when you're dealing issues, but
Right.
what do I know about the issues? What I've read all the stuff. Most people aren't, I've talked to these 10 people. The average person is just like, like that's what I do all day is I talk on the telephone. So I'm talking to all these smart people and you're getting perspectives and you're thinking about stuff. Where the average person, obviously they're thinking about their business. So if you sit there and say, hey, look, this isn't going to be a bad thing, um, or this is what happened here, you can explain it.
Yeah, no, I think that really does encapsulate kind of how I see you approach this kind of stuff, and how has kind of the proliferation of social, digital, of message boards, of Reddit, of subreddits, of tweets and Twitter, like how much do you let that, I guess, get into your awareness, even how much you pay attention to it, how much is it a source of information or even misinformation, and how does it affect kind of the conversations you have? I brought up an example in my notes of like sliced bread and Jimbo Fisher and all that. We even have sort of the other element too of like how social media maybe affects the way that this stuff is perceived by the NCAA leadership, by whoever's setting the NIL regulations, by whoever is hiring the head coach. There's multiple avenues we can go here, but I first kind of want to hear how you kind of digest all the information and disinformation and opinions and the loud minority of voices out there that are ultimately talking about sports at large every day.
Um, yeah, I always say if you hate media, you really hate social media. Um, you can hate me, it's part of the mainstream media or traditional media, but I do spend all day thinking about these things and thinking about not just accuracy, but fairness, which is part of accuracy, that gets social media isn't into, right? You always see these like things and they'll say like politician X said, let them all die of cancer or something, some crazy thing. And you're like, you really said that? Like, no. And it's like, it's completely out of context, right?
Yeah.
And so you're like, yeah, that you can say, hey, I hate the New York Times. Well, they're not printing that.
Right.
Right? Like social media is printing that, or I hate this site, like whatever it is. It's like, yeah, social media is worse. So I guess you have to give me a more specific example. I'm not really sure. Like,
Yeah, I mean, like,
like sliced bread or somebody saying there's 30, like, I knew that wasn't true. I mean, if you do your job, you know it's bullshit. So, and you just have to, I mean,
have you found though that you need to have not necessarily a pulse on things, but like you need to know, oh, Lane Kiffin tweeted this, or even it's a way to even reach out to people. Hey, I'm gonna hit up this whatever.
well, you
Recruiting.
use social media to report, no question. You use social media to get a hold of people, different things. Yeah, I mean, people can make news on tweets or make news on any which way. I mean, it's everybody can communicate. So, the proper posts or some fight that they're having on social media or things like that matter. No question. So you're monitoring some of that.
Mhm.
But in terms of the misinformation stuff, like Texas A&M spent $30 million on a recruiting class, you can get like frustrated that people actually believe that or they just want, but like you just can't. All right.
I mean, then you have
Like, no, they didn't.
like
Like, they
tracker
didn't.
accounts. You have all like the rumors out there, and it's just there's so much information, and some of it's relevant, but most of it's not.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I don't know. There's nothing I can do about it. So, I mean,
How
it's
much?
not my job to police the information of out there, right? All you can do is there's credible news organizations that put false stuff out there. There's the teams or the coaches, they put out false stuff themselves on purpose. So all you
Yeah.
can do is try to sort through it, but you can't really spend much time. I mean, it gets people will say, "Oh, you're wrong because I saw this," but oh well. I think again, it goes to the long-term relationship. If people trust that, you're reasonable, you don't overreact to stuff, then maybe they have more of a understanding. It's all you can go with. It's
Yeah.
it's not easy. I mean, people just make shit up about you or make up stories that you said or pull quotes or clip video, like, and it's like that isn't what this was about, but
Right.
that's a little different than what you're talking about, but you just kind of got to go with it.
No, I mean it's all important. All can shape narratives for better or for worse. And how do you see I guess the power structure of narrative shaping to kind of jump off on that point, whether the I mean when you were first getting started, the national media probably had a much more bigger influence. They still have a lot of influence today on setting the national agenda and setting how we feel about things. But even more so now we have these huge college fan bases as well who might affect whether Greg Schiano gets hired at Tennessee or whatever. Like, how much do we look at these kind of communities, these loud vocal minorities on social, and really driving narratives and also driving the way that a college administrator thinks that the fan base feels about a given situation? Or is that just really more a media creation and not really having a tangible effect on these things?
Well, it's not my job for tennis. Like, you take Greg Schiano in Tennessee, right? I don't care whether Greg Schiano gets hired at Tennessee or not.
Right.
It's not my job. Don't care. Doesn't matter. Whatever happens, happens. So it's a story if the Tennessee listens to the fans, or it's a story if they don't, or whatever. I'm just here to react to it. I don't have a take. I have no sacred cows. Like I said, I root for the Boston Bruins. I never write about them. It's the only team I care about. Um, if you take the Shiano story specifically, because I did work on that. So the allegation was that I don't want to say it wrong, so this is the problem. The allegation was that he was aware of some way of Jerry Sandusky and
Right.
didn't do anything about it. So I actually had covered Sandusky in depth for a long time. So on that day, what I did was I pulled out the exact part of a Mike McQuarrie, who was the grad assistant at Penn State. He had done a deposition, and deep in this deposition, there's this one part where he thought that Shiano knew that something sketchy possibly. So I reported exactly what got said.
Yeah.
And this is what was said. This is the issue. There is zero any other corroboration on this, or there's not this, there's not this, there's this, there's that. This is how it fits in. I reported the exact facts, which probably very few people would have been able to do because they had done all that research. So the average fan could sit there and go, well, what is this? Now people are taking it to like, well, he knew about it and didn't do anything. Like he's in favor of, I thought that was unfair. Everyone takes it as it spins so hard because you make more money spinning hard. You can make money that way. And so it's like, well, here's the actual facts of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the hell Tennessee does or doesn't do, or the fans do, or Shiano does, that's not my problem. I don't really care. But I can provide this. And so that's how I would handle that case, not arguing one way or the other, which, I mean, should he have gotten hired? I don't know.
Right.
But he isn't being accused of what he's being accused of. But here's the situation. It's not that this is made up wholly out of cloth.
But how do you look at, I guess, this invisible power, or maybe visible power, I guess, that the fans on social media, maybe it's 200, maybe it's 2,000, but it's still a very, very small minority of fans that are basically dictating how the nation perceives what's going on in Tennessee. Oh, Tennessee fans don't want Shiano because of XYZ. And if Twitter and Reddit didn't exist, maybe that doesn't get out there. And so is there this, and not just speaking from you as a third party observer of the way that social media, the way that these new platforms kind of dictate whether a coach gets fired, whether a coach is on the hot seat, whether a coach gets hired, or whatever may happen. Is that something that you've seen evolve, as from the earliest social media to today, that there are these kind of vocal minorities on social media that, for better or for worse, can help shape narratives?
Yeah, I mean, clearly social media allows anybody a voice and it can go big really quick. And it doesn't, that guy could have been a guy at the end of the bar, guy calling into talk radio, some guy, right? Now it's like out there and they can make things so you can disinformation things really easily. And it's all how it's presented and it can be quite effective and people are good at it. It's not my, I mean, what am I supposed to do about it?
Right. No, I mean,
I don't care. If you're listening to, if an organization is listening to what's getting said on social media, they're failing because what seems like a lot on social media is not. It can be one guy with 200 accounts,
mm-hmm.
20 people yelling at you can seem like the whole thing, terrible, like it's 20,000. Where most fans are reasonable and still support the team and all that, or don't even know. So, but that's not my job. I don't, whatever. I got enough problems.
But I do find it fascinating that you recognize that there are probably some ADs out there or some head coaches that take some of the stuff to heart way too much when, to your point, it could be a couple of guys with a lot of time.
It's hard to do when they're coming after you. Yeah. And they can be completely wrong. They can take an opinion of yours or something you said or coach said. The aggregation business of the media is no better. The way they aggregate stuff, it's not what you were talking about. It's not what you reported. It's everything could just be taken any which way, and it can be frustrating. Or if people are yelling at you for something, and it's like that just isn't even accurate. But there's not much you can do. I mean, it's just nothing you can do. That's just life. It sucks that goes on, but it probably sucked before in a different way. So it's just how it is. I don't know.
We're cheery here today, making people feel great about
Yeah,
it.
I don't know what to say. I mean, I can't
Uh,
change that. If people want to yell at some guy, it's that's what they're gonna do.
so 1 more minute left here with Dan Wetzel, Yahoo Sports. Then we'll get to those shareable stat and our quick hitting questions as well. I guess that to close out, Dan, I kind of just want to hear you've been in this media game a long time now. Not to date you, but you're a veteran. If you were starting out today, or talking to someone who was starting out and wanted to get into sports media, into reporting, into investigate, whatever it might be, what would you do? Like, there's so many different avenues now. Like, and it's a challenge business in some ways. How would you approach things if you were just starting out today?
Well, I think if you can find stuff out that other people can't find out, then you'll have a career. Um, if you're going to try to base it solely on personality, takes, saying the same thing as everybody else, not being the value of a replacement player, it's not going to last. So
Hmm.
there's been so many people that come and go because they don't really provide value. They're replaceable.
Yeah.
But if you can uncover information, get people to talk to you, if you know how to be a reporter, um, there's probably a future for you. It's a tough business, though. I wouldn't recommend that anybody do it. But if you want to do it, you better have the basis of reporting, not just I can package up a TikTok or this or that. This is like, why am I listening to you? At some point, it comes down to why are you listening? And unless you're incredibly uh, gifted and charismatic, it's really hard to do without being a reporter or already previously famous. Because it's just such a competitive industry.
Yeah. Well, for what it's worth, for my own consumption, I find Yahoo, I find you, I find the podcast as well to be that
So
combination.
why do you listen to our podcast? Like, let me ask you this: why do you listen to College Football Inquirer?
No, it's a great question because I have a pretty heavy, college football and college sports podcast diet. I listen to The Audible with Bruce and Stu. I listen to Solid Verbal with Ty and Dan. But I never miss yours is probably my favorite because it has that great combination of I'm gonna learn something and I'm gonna be able to laugh about some of the absurdity of things. And that sort of informed irreverence, for lack of a better term, is why I
Right.
come back. And getting to kind of know the personalities over the years and know the inside jokes, and that kind of compounds as well over the years. So I think it is that sort of you described it, of having the credibility of the information along with the personality, and that's the secret recipe, is having enough of both so that it keeps people coming back. Because like I said, information, it's important, but it's also more commoditized now. Like, I can get the information from a single tweet, and then it's a matter of, okay, who do I want to go to, either for more information about that scoop, or for someone's take on it, or give me a couple of lines about it that'll make me laugh and see it in a different light or different angle.
Right. Well, that's what we're going for. So good.
I love to hear. I could seriously pick your brain about podcasting and just writing and community building in general all day. We'll have some more fun. Our quick hitting question segment though, Dan. First episode shareable stat coming up right now. Awesome stuff from Dan Wetzel, national columnist for Yahoo Sports. Seriously love listening to him. He is so full of wisdom and insight. Also enjoy hearing him on the podcast, College Football Inquirer, multiple times every week, reading his national stories, his reports. Just awesome stuff. But stick around because we're having some fun with Dan with our quick hitting questions. You're going to want to hear some of his great stories in that segment. First episode's shareable stat. This episode's shareable stat is hard to escape right now. If you are in and around social media and sports, you have no doubt heard about Cristiano Ronaldo joining YouTube. Not that many individual athletes have YouTube channels. Many do, but not a ton. And Cristiano Ronaldo decided to join. And as I'm talking to you, it's been about 4 days, and he already has 45 million subscribers, which means he's already about 15% of the way toward Mr. Beast and his 300 plus million of subscribers on YouTube. What can you take away from that? Well, of course, not every athlete, I mean, really no athlete when it comes to social media and brand is Cristiano Ronaldo. But more and more athletes may start to join YouTube. We saw a little bit of a burst a few years ago. I think Kevin Durant was one of the first to get on there. And especially now, more and more athletes are starting their own podcasts as well. And podcasts, do really well on YouTube. That's why this podcast joined YouTube in the last year. And it's a matter of thinking, how can we start to populate these channels with media? How can we start to look at athletes getting more creative with what they're posting on a platform like YouTube, where they can make legit passive income? And who owns that content? If you have a shoot at a practice, using game highlights, that's a whole other can of worms to open there. You think about NIL. We talked about a lot about with NIL in the interview with Dan. And when you're a college athlete and you have a feature story done on you and an interview with the athletics program, can that go on your YouTube? Is YouTube going to introduce some sort of collab type feature so they can live on multiple channels? How can athletes start to populate their YouTube channels with original content, with content they're producing in tandem with their teams, with their organization, with their college programs? And also, of course, as we talked about a lot on this podcast, how can we make sure that teams and organizations are working with their athletes, so that athletes don't just bring their own video team to create content themselves and eschew the content that their teams want to create with them and for them and on behalf with them. So lots of interesting stuff here. Definitely check out what Cristiano Ronaldo is doing. He's already racked up multiple videos with 20, 30, 40 million plus views in his 4 days. And it'll be interesting to see as more and more athletes join the platform with podcasts, with original content, with vlog content, and how it works, working with the teams and leagues that already make a lot of money off of video content featuring these athletes, both on and off the court and field. So that's episode shareable stat. Check it out, think about it, talk about it, ponder it. Again, 45 million subscribers for Cristiano Ronaldo on YouTube after just around 4 days of joining the platform. Pretty stunning stuff. But more importantly, stick around, because we're having some more fun here and learn more and hear more stories from Dan Wetzel of Yahoo Sports. Back on with Dan Wetzel of Yahoo Sports. So good interview. Being able to pick your brain a little bit. Dan, are you now ready for some quick hits?
All right, let's go. Let's see what we got.
All right, number one. I know you've covered Olympics over the years. You were just in Paris not that long ago for the Summer Games. Tell me your favorite story you've written covering the Olympics, and also your all-time favorite Olympics experience.
Oof. My favorite Olympics was the Russia Winter Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
It was total chaos. My hotel room didn't have a doorknob for like 10 days. They just threw up these how construction didn't get it done. Russia's massively corrupt and inefficient and incapable, but an incredible experience being in basically rural Russia for 2.5 weeks. It was not comfortable. The food was terrible, all that, but we just had, I like the experience. I'd rather that than a nice hotel somewhere that I would have gone anyway. So that was always my favorite. Favorite Olympic story, man. I don't even know. There's a boxer. She's still boxing now. Katie Taylor is a big Irish boxer. It was very exciting when she won in London. I guess that popped to mind. So maybe that. Ryan Lochte getting drunk down in Rio. That was fun.
Oh, wild
stuff like that. I don't know. It's always chaos at the Olympics. Sometimes we'll get bosses come in. They have never done the Olympics. They want to plot out every single, what are we going to do this day? What are we going to do? It's like, dude, you don't know what's coming. Anything could happen. And all of a sudden you're shifting gears. So, that's always kind of the fun part of the Olympics is you wake up any day and it could be different.
That's so cool. I love that the mindset of, you're about to go here for 2 or 3 weeks and you have no idea what the main story is going to be, because it plays out.
You got a few ideas, but I'll tell you this, I was covering the men's basketball gold medal game on a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a big game. So I'm covering that, but while I'm there, at the same time, there's one of the boxers who was caught up in this whole gender test scandal is fighting at the gold medal, fighting for the gold medal. So I'm watching that on, I can't be in 2 places at once. The arenas are about an hour and a half away. So I'm watching that, and I've got some running stories ready to go. I'm kind of covering that on my computer, watching it. Gold medal game's going on. At the same time, the gymnast Jordan Childs gets her bronze medal stripped, or at that point it was in the process of getting stripped over this judges controversy. So you have three totally different stories all happening at the exact same time, and you've got to cover all three of them at once.
Oh,
And two of them you never would have known going in. So you might have sat there and said, "Oh, on that night, men's basketball gold medal game will be the big story," and it was, but so weren't these other two. So it's like you have
wow.
to be able to be extremely versatile and quick, and you just got to go with it because you just have no idea. But you never would have thought I'd be caring about a Chinese Taipei boxer possibly winning gold, and of course, you never know when there's going to be a judges controversy.
Man, just I'm just sweating just thinking about it. I have anxiety, myself over here just thinking about that. It's fun for sure in its own way. Number
Yeah,
two, tell me, you worked on covering the Aaron Hernandez story over the years and also on the Netflix documentary. So just give me an idea, like what was it like work on that doc and on the story in general? Like, I mean, very heavy stuff, obviously.
yeah. Hernandez story was really interesting. From my obviously tragic, but from the jump when he first became a suspect,
Mhm.
um, all the way through two trials, all of that stuff. It was a fascinating story. Didn't really get covered at the extent that it deserved. We were getting enormous traffic covering those trials. We always had huge traffic, but a lot of the sports media is not going to jump in on a murder.
Right,
And um, the cable networks, which used to cover murders, crime, they used to cover a lot more stuff. Now it's all um, politics. So basically, all Donald Trump.
right.
Um, and so they don't really, there's a vacuum for true crime, even though true crime remains enormously popular. But CNN in the old days would have been all over that trial, and instead they were doing whatever they were doing.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but so there was always a kind of a vacuum there. So we thought that there would be a bigger story to tell. Documentary business, a very interesting business. Took a long time. It always does with any project involving Hollywood. But I'm glad we got it out. Worked with a company, Blackfin, Gino McDermott down in New York City, and yeah, it was good. It's an unbelievable story. An
Yeah.
unbelievable story.
No, and just speaks to a little bit what we talked about earlier around, you guys going after the investigative stories and kind of doing the work that maybe others weren't always.
I think it's the same thing as I don't know if I said this, but it's like you do the reporting and you have the story, and then how you just distribute it to the public can change.
Hmm.
So maybe at one point it's just written columns, or maybe it's a book, or maybe it's a documentary, or maybe it's via podcasting, or maybe it's via commentary on podcasting, or it's a true crime pod, or it's through TikTok or whatever it is. At the end of the day, have you done the reporting? Do you have information? Do you have the accuracy? Do you have all that stuff? And then however the public wants it, that's you meet them in that spot and find it and give it to them.
That's a great insight. I mean, yeah, information and the meat of something is a starting point, and then how do we disseminate it? How do we package it? And what's the best way to maximize this and get all you can out of it?
Right.
Number three for you, and this could be a fun one here, less heavy than the last one at least. Tell me your most memorable encounter with an athlete or a coach, and also your favorite athlete or coach to interview throughout your career.
Most memorable. I don't know. Nothing popped up. So, um,
We can skip
yeah,
the one. We
yeah,
can go with favorite then. Who's one or two
trying to
guys that
think.
are fun.
I don't know how memorable. What do you mean? What do you mean? Like,
I mean, it could be the the old Jeff Pearlman, like John Rocker cussing him out or whatever, or it could be just I had a beer with this guy and it was fun, or we can just skip the memorable. And we can go with your favorite. Just
I mean, I'm
fun.
sure I've been cussed out, but that's just like the business. Like, I don't, whatever. They're not mad at you sometimes. You didn't do your job. I hate that they televise press conferences or that becomes a big thing because it's like you're supposed to be at odds sometimes.
Right.
Um, it
How
was
about
really,
then? Who's been fun or overly well articulate or just someone that you've enjoyed interviewing over the years?
I would say, let me try to think here. I think like I always feel like Bill Belichick was one of the most fascinating characters
Hmm.
I've covered and continue to cover just because he was such a interesting guy. The way he conducted himself, who he was, how much they won, um, the way he dealt with the media, what he would say, all that. I think like it's funny because people there's like this perception, and I don't think I have no idea. I don't really know what people I don't know what the media thinks. We don't have like a newsletter. Like we don't have meetings. Like I don't always get this, but people are like he was so bad to the media. Like he wasn't bad, he was fascinating. Like I'll take like
Oh.
I don't know, maybe snap at some dumb question or give you a glare. Like, who cares? He's gave you so much to write about. Like I'm not trying to be his friend. I don't need him to be polite. I don't need anybody to be polite. I don't need to be anyone to be my friend or anything. I want interesting people to write about. And for 20 plus years, that guy's been very, very interesting. He's smart and doesn't mind doing this and that. Like one of the better characters I ever got to cover.
I like it. And now he's on the side of the media, so we'll get to see him.
Yeah, yeah.
Next one, this is gonna be a fun one here. Tell me the best sports venue. It can be pro or college, whichever you like. The best sports venue that you've been to, and also the most unusual.
The best sports venue. Well, I don't know. I was just at the beach volleyball thing with the Eiffel Tower in the background. That was pretty good. Yeah. I don't know if that really counts because it was up for 2.5 weeks, but that was pretty cool. There's just so many. I mean, some of the college football stadiums,
Yeah.
and JUCO basketball, high school basketball, NFL stadiums for playoff games. Um, I don't know that I have necessarily one that would stand out, but I've been to pretty much everywhere. Um,
Now
they all can be pretty good.
you're just making me jealous now.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah. I've been to a lot of places. Um, so I don't know that one really stands out more than the other. But not that's in a good way. I mean, you can sit there and be like, "Wow, there's nothing quite like Tiger Stadium at LSU," but there's also something like being at a JUCO basketball game in Iowa when it's jammed up and it's hot and like or it's or I don't know Heinz Field at an AFC Championship game when they're all waving their towels. Like it's not none of it's so different. Like I wouldn't be able to maybe pick one or the other.
Yeah. No, just lots of memories, lots of
Not
cool.
sure I'm doing very good on the lightning round.
It's okay. We're getting good stories, even if we're not getting,
Yeah. See, it's like I'm like the
concrete.
Belichick. Yeah, I don't know.
You can redeem yourself here, Dan. The next one is we're coming down the wire here. You are made emperor of college sports, inclusive of NCAA, college football playoff. You get to rule everything. You get emperor for a day. What is one change you make, if you make any changes?
I can do one thing.
You get to hand down one decree.
I would go back to the old conferences, but a simple one, I would just have home site for the college football playoff to the title game.
I like that.
No neutral sites. No one's ever been at a college football game at Bryant Denny Stadium and said, "Boy, look at this place. The atmosphere's incredible. Everyone's going crazy. It's a beautiful campus. So much excitement." No one's ever sat there and said, "Boy, I really, really wish this was at University of Phoenix Stadium. This would be so much better if we were in Miami Gardens." So there's a simple one.
I like
I
it.
don't,
That's a good one, and we'll get to see.
I don't want to solve college sports problems. They're
True.
good. They're good for my business.
That's a great point.
I wrote Death to the BCS, this book called
Yeah.
Death to the BCS, a couple with Jeff Passan and Josh Peter. And I was at this AD meeting down in Orlando once, and I was on a panel, which I don't normally do, but I did decide to do the panel. And they go, "Who in the room?" The BCS was going away, and they said, "Who in the room is sad to see the BCS leave?" And I rose my hand. I'm like, "Dude, I got like paid a couple of years of my kids' tuition. This thing is like it's been great. Like
Oh, that's perfect.
I don't care. The more problems you have, the better I do."
It's true. It keeps us all in business. Next one is tell me this could be a straight up easy one. Tell me the most viewed or viral story from your time at Yahoo. What's the one that had either the most clicks or page views? The one just that took off the most.
Ooh. I don't know exactly, but we've had some whoppers, man. We had some big ones. We used to get, I mean, there were times we'd get over 10 million.
Holy shit!
Uh, we get high. Um, there was a day, there was one in at the Beijing Olympics. Usain Bolt was obviously the biggest star.
Mhm.
He's the biggest star at all three Olympics because just charismatic and uh the Olympics are like there's two parts of the Olympics. There's either sports that your country is good at or there's stupid sports. That's how basically people look at it. But the 100-yard dash is like from the cavemen. Like there were cavemen sitting there going, "All right, I'll race you to that rock." Right? Everybody on Earth understands what the 100-yard dash is,
Mhm.
or 100 meters, whatever it is. 100 meters race. Everybody knows it. So it is truly the global championship. Everybody likes it. There's nothing not to like about a sprint. It's 8 seconds, not well, 9.6 seconds, whatever. So you have this unbelievable character out of Jamaica, and he's winning, and then he wins the 220, 200, and then and one of them he wins. He stops. He doesn't run all the way through the tape. He like was slowing down and looking back. And the IOC president at the time ripped him for being a bad sport. And um, I ripped the hell out of this guy for making money off of people like Usain Bolt. And I recall that one being rather enormous because you get kind of a global audience on that one,
Yeah.
standing up. So I remember that being perfect. I remember covering the fight of Kimbo Slice when he lost.
Wow.
He was in this thing, Elite XC. I was down in Florida. I was at the Panthers, Sunrise, Florida, and he fought. Kimbo Slice was a really big deal. And he got beat by this guy, Seth Petroselli. And I wrote this column after. I remember that one being uh, massive. It's been some Super Bowl ones, some Brady. I don't know. I don't know. I think that Usain Bolt one might have topped it out, but I don't know.
Hey, that's awesome. You have quite a few quite a few wins on the wall, so to speak, over the years. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
we would get some serious traffic there for it was a little terrifying at times.
Next one, Dave,
Great, but terrifying.
almost done here, but we gotta ask our food question. Tell me the best meal you've had in a college town, and also if it's different, your favorite college town overall.
The best meal in a college town.
Yeah,
Jeez.
that you've had, that you've had. We can't go off reputation here.
I don't know. Uh I wouldn't. I mean, there's been a bunch some barbecue. I don't really not really my thing.
No worries. You're not indicating.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, definitely had some good barbecues. College towns, if you're talking about a real college town, they don't usually have good of food.
True. How about then just your favorite college town just for vibes?
Um, and I don't really go out to nice restaurants also. Yeah, I go to like Subway and stuff. Um, best college town for vibes.
Atmosphere, general. This is the quintessential college town that you got to visit.
Um, I would say if you want to visit a college town, so I don't mean to be. I think I'm just like these. I'm just like I sound difficult, and I don't want to sound difficult.
This is
I'll
fine.
go there to work. Like I don't often stay in the college town because the rooms are
Fair.
too. You can't get a room, so I just kind of go in and out. I'm there to like it's work, so it's not college town, right? It's not like fun. It's fun. I'm not saying it's not fun, but it's not. I don't visit it the way other people. Athens, Georgia would be a very quintessential, seem like a really fun college town.
Yeah,
Um, Madison, I don't really know if that's a college town. It's not.
true.
Ann Arbor, it's nice. They kind of all have the same stuff. If you go to a college town, there's the campus bars, there's the Chipotle, there's the Panera, there's the pizza or bagel. Like so,
Right.
um, I think you can have a lot of fun in any college town. But I don't know what. It kind of depends on what age you are. You get old in a college town really quick too. I remember that. One time I was pretty young in my career. I was in Lawrence, Kansas, and I was sitting with a guy from the basketball staff, and we were at a bar, and all of a sudden the cops come in. The bar was kind of crowded. We were just sitting at a booth talking, and this crowd, cops come in, and like 2/3 of the place just runs because they're underage. And we're like 24. I was like 24 years old, and I was like, you seeing guys like running out the back door and stuff because they have fake IDs. You're like, good lord, are we really that old? Where you're like I had no idea at 24 we're the oldest people at the bar, but we were like the only people that didn't flinch when the cop came in. Like, so you just never know.
Oh, that's fantastic. All right, we'll take that answer for sure. And I guess for sports writers, it's really just where's the stadium closest to the airport and an easy hotel to get to, and how can I get in and out with
Yeah, I hate to ruin the the excitement, but that's kind of it. How do I get out of here? Tuscaloosa's not, I don't know. They're all great. They're all nice. And if I was there to like hang out, it'd be fantastic.
We got two really quick ones to end here. First, this can be a quick one, or you can elaborate the sports team and or college program whose fans you have found to be the most vociferous over the years.
What do you mean by vociferous?
If you write a column, who's going to always have an opinion? Who's going to come at you? Who do you make sure you not to say a bad word about on the pod because they'll come at you? Who's kind of the craziest or just the the most yeah, I guess the most vocal.
Every fan base is insane. If you are writing anything negative or saying something negative, they'll all come at you pretty much. Maybe not all. You're not going to hear a lot of like Cal football fans or something like, but generally speaking, they all get pretty fired up. Protect the wall. They're all protecting the wall. So you can't really shy away from any of it, but, they're pro college, fighters, the money team. You want the scariest fan base? The Floyd Mayweather fans, the money team. You ever see the money team? They could go to his fights and they'd all wear the money team. I mean, that was a crowd. That was a crowd. There's not like I graduated class of '87 and now I own a law firm. This is the money team. You do not want to scrap with the money team.
All right, not the answer.
So there you go.
But I'm glad I got it. That's fantastic.
Respect the money team.
Hell yeah. All right, last one for you, Dan. This one might be the toughest of all. Although I feel like I've stumped you on a lot of these already.
You give killing me. Yeah, I'm doing horrible. Yeah, it's like my college career.
The Mount Rushmore of representative figures for college football. If we had to build a Mount Rushmore for college football,
trying to get me killed? What are we doing here? What are we doing?
You want to find out who those most vociferous fan bases are.
The Mount Rushmore of college football?
Yes, sir. It can be, you can kind of interpret it open-ended if you like, but who represents college football that deserves to be on that Mount Rushmore? So it could be coaches, players, leaders, yourself.
Definitely not me. Well, I think you'd have to go historical on this, right?
Definitely a path. I mean, we just had, Nick Saban just retired. He might be on there.
No, because the college football wouldn't be any different if Nick Saban didn't coach college football. Somebody would be Nick Saban.
The recently passed Mike Leach changed the game a bit. Hal Mummy.
No, none of those guys. Bud Wilkerson, Oklahoma. Newt Rockney. I mean, you got to go to like stuff like that, like because they built the passion for college football that carries on. Because all these schools had to do something that makes zero sense, which is attach an educational institution to basically a professional sports outlet.
Right.
I mean, you try to explain college sports to people in Europe with their university, and it makes zero sense, and I get it. Why would like what you doing? What? Why don't you just root for the Why don't you just root for the local team, and then like they just don't have it? So, I guess you'd have to kind of go you'd have to go historical. It wouldn't be anybody in the last
You can go like Roy Kramer, maybe in that realm, or I'm trying to think of who these early TV guys were too. The guys that put together these TV deals.
Yeah, maybe whoever founded ESPN or something. But yeah, or the people that broke down there's some Supreme Court rulings and things like that. But
Right.
I don't think I answer these. I don't think these I'm doing very well. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You
I'm
already
trying. I'm sorry. I got to give an honest answer. Yeah. I'm not playing along for long.
kicking ass throughout. We've gotten some great stuff out of you, Dad. And
Yeah.
now, before we go, your chance to take over the podcast and tell us your social media or writer all-star to follow. Tell us some might be under the radar, who they are, why we should check them out.
Um, who should people follow? I knew this was coming and I didn't think of anything.
Well, while you're thinking, we can say that follow Dan on Twitter at Dan Wetzel, Wetzel, and read his work on Yahoo. Listen to the podcast, College Football Inquirer, and check out his books he's written over the years. I mean, we can
I get enjoyment out of the Sickos Committee. That's a college football thing. I don't know whether that's under the radar or not. They're called the Sickos Committee. All they do is college football. It's pretty fun.
That's definitely a good one, and they will be probably out this weekend with week 0 upon us, and someone's going to be watching that Hawaii game late into the evening, perhaps if Delaware makes it there.
They will definitely be all. Oh, they're all over that. Yeah, Sickos. They watch like Japanese college football and stuff.
So there we go. Check out the Sickos. Definitely follow Dan. Definitely check out his work. Read all of his books. Read his articles. Listen to the podcast. I cannot recommend it enough. This guy's in my ear 3 hours every week or so. And I enjoy every minute of it. And Dan, cannot thank you enough for coming on the pod today, sharing us some of your insight and knowledge and wisdom and opinions.
Thank you, Neil. I appreciate it.
Awesome stuff. Being able to talk to Dan Wetzel, a national columnist for Yahoo Sports. Seriously, a dream guest. I've been lucky enough to have a lot of dream guests on this podcast over the years, and Dan falls in that category. Really accomplished guy, so knowledgeable about the space, has lived through the ups and downs of sports media, continuing to thrive today as the platforms have changed, as media has changed and evolved, as stories have come and gone, and sports has become more and more important, it seems, with every passing year. And Dan has been right in the thick of it for many years now, and will be for more years to come. But that'll do it for this episode of the Digital and Social Media Sports Podcast. Thanks again for listening and downloading. As always, I'm your host, Neil Horowitz. Hit me up on Twitter, NJH287. Also on LinkedIn, where I post more content. DSMsports.net is the website. Also check out slyke.co, SLYKE, for more good content there. And of course, follow the podcast on your preferred podcast platform. Until next time, this is Neil Horowitz signing off for the Digital and Social Media Sports Podcast.